I've had a lot of requests on how to make fermented hot sauce. Hello family, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Vicki and you're with Grammy in the Kitchen. So today is day one of making fermented peppers hot sauce so that you can grind them up and make a delicious hot sauce. So we're going to get started today. We're going to move on daily, weekly, until we get to the flavor we're looking for in our hot sauce. We're going to make a hot sauce. We're going to make a jalapeno, which is a milder hot sauce. So I have a bag of the Orbowl chilies, and on the hot meter, this is considered hot. We're not going to need all of these. This is a 6-ounce bag. We're not going to use that all, family. I do want to remove the stems. I'm going to leave the seeds in. Oh, you can just smell that. Whew. Now, when you're working with dry peppers versus fresh peppers, we need to hydrate these before we get started. Fresh peppers, you don't need to do that step. I do want to get this quart-sized mason jar filled with these hot peppers. Then we got to make our brine. And then we are done. And let it sit for about a month or so. Even dehydrated, these things are potent. That looks good. So I have about 2.5 ounces of these hot Orbowl peppers. And now we're going to make our brine. I am going to start off with 1.5 cups of white distilled vinegar. Put that in a saucepan. And 1.5 cups of water. So it's equal vinegar to water. Let's go ahead and put our peppers in. And I'm going to put this on the stove. Medium heat. I'm going to let that come up to a boil, and I want those peppers to get hydrated. Now, while we're waiting on that, we can go ahead and start working on a fresh jalapeno hot sauce. So I have 1 quart of water, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm going to set this aside and let that salt get dissolved in that water. And the jalapenos, I'm just going to remove the stem. I'm going to slice these to 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. And I'm leaving the seeds and ribs. In this empty jar, we're going to go ahead and start placing our peppers. Now, if you want a milder pepper, you can remove all the seeds and ribs and just use the outer parts. because in jalapenos, the spice lives in those ribs and seeds. So depending on how hot or how mild you want your pepper sauce, remove some or all of the seeds and ribs. Okay, I think we're going to stop right there. Check on our salt water. Now we're going to dump this right in here. We're not using vinegar. We want to make sure everything stays smushed down. Now I'm just using this small ramekin as a weight. So everything will stay below the water line. I'm going to add a little bit of water just inside the ramekin. I have a used lid. I think I need to add just a little bit more salt water. And as you can see, the water is coming up to that bottom ring, and all the peppers are underneath that water. That's what we want when we're fermenting vegetables. Mold will grow on food that is outside of water. We have salt in here, so we don't have to worry about mold growing in this water. We do need to worry about it when it starts to ferment. It'll start building bubbles. So every day we want to come in here and unscrew the top, let out any bubbles or air, screw it back on, and we have to do that for a whole month. And every now and then we want to turn it upside down and then put it back upside right. So this is ready to ferment. We'll take care of this in a month, and we want to make sure we're burping it every day so it doesn't build up too much gas. We're still working on those hot peppers. We're up to a boil, and I'm going to let them boil for about 30 minutes, and then we'll check on it. Need to keep an eye on that water level too. I want those peppers to be hydrated before we move on. Well, we got one pepper done, and I still have another bag. Do I make another one, or do I just wait? Now this is some homegrown carrots from planting them in 2023, harvest them in early spring of 2024, as well as some homegrown jalapenos that I fermented last year. Now you can buy these little glass weights. I only have 2 of them. Both of them have carrots. I need to wash this because we're going to use that with the hot peppers. So this is a carrot, and I just put fresh carrots in here and some jalapenos. And it's been fermenting for over a year. Now you can ferment anything you want. It doesn't have to be peppers. It could be any vegetable. I'm going to try one of these peppers. Even though they're jalapenos, they are spicy. And one of our carrots. It's like, because this is only salt and water, but it's very vinegary. That's pretty good. Now I want to stop the fermentation of this, so I'm going to stick it in the refrigerator and we can just snack on that. And I'll bring you right back when those orbals, if I'm not saying it right, please tell me, family, have hydrated. We can move on. So our peppers have come to a boil. I'll let them boil for 30 minutes. And then I've had it just sitting on the stove, cooling off. I do want to drain the water and the vinegar just so I can get a volume. Now we started off with 1.5 cups of water, 1.5 cups of vinegar, and we only have 1/2 cup. So we know we need to add more liquid. We'll set that aside. And in this mason jar, I'm going to add the peppers and all the seeds. I'm going to add the liquid that we cooked it. And now we need to fill it up with water. So this is the salt water we had when we made the jalapenos. It looks like I have 1.5 cups, and this already has salt in it. Perfect amount. So this is the weight. I went ahead and cleaned it. We'll put that right on top. Now we got the weight in here because we want to make sure all of the peppers is underneath that liquid. I'm going to put a lid and a ring. And just like the jalapenos, we'll start seeing air bubbles forming on the inside. And then every day we need to make sure we go in here and give it a burp. Let those air bubbles out. And any of the peppers that are starting to float to the top, you don't want them to be above the water line. So you need to make sure you're checking your fermented vegetables to make sure everything is staying underneath that water line. If it comes above the water line, it's going to mold and it's done. So we're going to let these sit on the shelf in the pantry for a month. Keep an eye on the bubbles, burp it, make sure all the vegetables are below that water line. And in a month, we'll taste it, see if we need to extend it any longer. Because you want to have that briny, salty vinegar flavor. But you don't want to go too far where it's just hot vinegar. You want hot sauce. It has been 1 month and 2 days since we got together and made fermented hot peppers so we can make some hot sauce. I went ahead and did the rest of those jalapenos. So we ended up with 3 quart-sized jars of jalapenos plus a pint-sized jar. And then that Orville's, we have 1 quart-sized jar. But before we move on, I do want to taste them because I want to make sure that they're at the level I want them to be. Are you ready? The jalapenos, oh family, oh, they're hot. So I'm going to drain all the liquid from these jalapenos and I'm going to put them in the high-speed blender. And so far we have no mold growing because we made sure all of those jalapenos was underneath that water level. Think I got too much in here? We'll find out. I'm gonna blend this until I get a paste, and then we need to strain it so we're just getting the sauce from those jalapenos without the jalapenos. Now if I need to add some of this liquid in there to loosen it up, it's not a problem. We can do that. All right, let's take a peek. That is potent. I'm gonna add a little bit of this liquid, maybe a half a cup. I'm gonna blend it a little bit longer. Oh yeah, I think that's what we're looking for. And I'm gonna strain it through a fine mesh strainer. I'm just pushing the pulp up against the fine mesh strainer. Make sure we're getting all the goodness extracted from this pulp. So I have a little bottle here that I want to store my jalapeno hot sauce. So now we got a jar of jalapeno hot sauce. Let's go ahead and work on the hydrated dried orbals and make another hot sauce. I'm not going to bother washing this. I'm just going to add those hot peppers in here and puree it because mild and hot will just make hot. We're going to put this in the high-speed blender. I'm going to add just a little bit of this liquid, maybe a tablespoon. Put the lid on and let it do its thing. family. That is very warm. I'm going to do it one more time. And we're going to strain this one just like we did with the jalapeno hot sauce. It is very potent. Try not to inhale too much. I'm going to add a little bit more of this hot sauce liquid. Just try to get all that goodness out. I don't want to waste any of it. All right, let's strain it just like we did with the other hot sauce. I think I'm going to let this sit and just let it drain naturally. And this will be a good time for me to go ahead and start washing some of these dishes, get all those jars clean. And I'll be right back. Little side note right here, family. Don't leave me yet. So I took some chicken thighs out of the freezer and I used some of that pulp and some of the liquid from the orbals, and I marinated some chicken thighs for later this week. Plus the rest of that pulp, I divided into 3 pint-sized Ziploc bags. Also with the liquid from the orbal peppers. And I'm just going to put this in the freezer. That way we can have some hot pepper pulp that we can use as a marinade for the future. And that way we have no waste from those jalapenos or those orbals. We have some jalapeno hot sauce and we have some orbal hot sauce. Thank you for hanging out with me in the kitchen the last month making some hot sauce. Until next time, you have a blessed day. Bye, family.